Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to start the special microbiology section, and first of all we will be starting from the gram positive cocci. In the gram positive cocci we have two main genus including Staphylococcus and Streptococcus. So Staphylococcus are divided into two more categories: Coagulase positive staph and Coagulase negative staph. We have one and only important example for the Coagulase positive staph, that is the Staphylococcus aureus, and in case of Coagulase negative staph we are having two medically important pathogens including Staphylococcus saprophyticus and Staphylococcus epidermidis. So now we will be discussing the details of Staphylococcus and its various species. So while discussing various organisms, various bacteria, we will be discussing their general properties, their oxygen requirements, and various other properties, various tests that would be positive in that organism's case. We will be discussing the epidemiology and the transmission of that bacterium, that will be including where that disease, where that organism is prevalent, where it is more pandemic or epidemic. Then we will be discussing the pathogenesis. The pathogenesis will be including the virulence factor of that organism and how it will be causing the disease through those virulence factors. Then we will be discussing the lab diagnosis, and lab diagnosis will be including various microscopic techniques like gram staining or Zn staining. We will be discussing the main part of the microbiology, that is culturing. We will be putting that organism, that sample, whatever we will be getting like pus or blood, we will be putting it over the culture plates, and we will be streaking that sample all over the plate, and that's how we will be getting the growth of the pathogen. And then the next part would be diagnosing that organism, which one is the diagnosis that is actually causing that disease. So we will be doing various biochemical tests, we will be doing serological tests, we will be doing PCR techniques just to identify that organism. And then we are having the treatment and prevention. For the treatment we will be doing the sensitivity test, we will be checking the sensitivities of various organism of that organism against various antibiotics, and then we will be making a report in which we will be telling the physician which drug is sensitive, which one is resistant, which one is having the intermediate zones regarding that organism. And in the prevention section we will be discussing the vaccinations or various other passive immunization techniques just to inhibit that disease. So there are antibiotics that will be used in the treatment, and you will be discussing their details in the pharmacology section. Just to give you an overview, we are having different categories of those antibiotics including cell wall inhibitors, protein synthesis inhibitors, nucleic acid synthesis inhibitors, and various others. And for the anaerobes, so these drugs, there are drugs like cell wall inhibitors will be including penicillins, cephalosporins, we will be having tetracyclines, aminoglycosides, macrolides in the protein synthesis inhibitor heading. And then we will be having that Septron, you would be knowing that name, Septron, and the quinolones, very famous quinolones like ciprofloxacin, moxifloxacin in that nucleic acid synthesis inhibitor category, and that metronidazole in that anaerobic category. So these are various antibiotics. There are few other groups also, but you will be discussing their details in the pharmacology, and here you will be knowing few of the names. These are the sensitivity plates. In the background you will be seeing that there is streaking of the organism all over the plate, and when the organism is streaked all over the plate, you will be putting the antibiotic and then incubating that plate. Next day you will be getting a zone of inhibition around those or antibiotic discs, and wherever there will be zone of inhibition it will be considered sensitive, and wherever there will be a little or no zone of inhibition around the antibiotic it will be considered resistant. Actually the organism is resistant to that drug. This is to be to be more specific, the organism is actually resistant to various antibiotics. So we are checking the susceptibility pattern of that organism against that antibiotic. These are various steps. Whenever you will be doing the culturing and sensitivity, you will be collecting sample from the patient, then that sample would be put over the plates for culturing, for streaking, for incubation, and when you will be getting the growth you will be doing microscopic techniques, you will be doing biochemical tests, you will be checking the antibiotic sensitivities, and in the end you will be making a report just to inform physician about the name of the isolate and the drugs that are sensitive. These are just mere pictures of various kind of skin infections caused by Staphylococcus aureus especially, in which you can see that most of these infections are the pyogenic ones. There will be pus forming infections by the Staphylococcus aureus category. The genus derives its name from the grape-like appearance of the organism when viewed under the microscope. Basically this Staphyl word is the Greek word, means bunch of grapes. So you can see that in the gram staining you will be seeing the bunches of various gram positive cocci in the back in that field. So here are different properties related to the common to all staphylococci. These are all gram positive cocci. They might be strict aerobes and they can be facultative anaerobes. The facultative anaerobes can be grown in the presence of oxygen or in the absence. They are non-motile, they are non-spore forming and catalase positive. One of the basic tests that differentiate between staphylococci and the streptococci. Catalase would be positive in case of staphylococci and it will be negative in case of streptococci. So staphyloxanthin is a pigment that imparts golden color to the colonies of Staphylococcus aureus. That Staphylococcus aureus is having a typical golden color of their colonies, and they are usually beta hemolytic colonies for those Staphylococcus aureus, not in the case of Staphylococcus epidermidis. Just to tell you a little about the type of hemolysis, as we have discussed that Staphylococcus aureus is having a beta hemolysis. Hemolysis beta or maybe alpha or can be gamma. The beta hemolysis is actually the complete hemolysis caused by an organism whenever it will be grown over the blood agar plate, so that in vitro growth would be clearing the plate, that blood agar plate. Underneath it, as you can see that in the center there is where there is written beta, so that organism's growth that is grown over that plate, it will be hemolyzing all RBCs underneath it. So this is the complete hemolysis that is in vitro, and where there is written the alpha, you can see that there is a partial hemolysis. Alpha hemolysis is basically the partial hemolysis caused by an organism in vitro, and gamma hemolysis means no hemolysis. So these are the three main categories. If there is hemolysis, it can be complete or partial, or there can be no hemolysis, just to categorize various hemolytic colonies. This is a typical growth of Staphylococcus aureus over the blood agar plate, and here it is golden in color. The colonies are golden in color, and there is beta hemolysis caused by them over the blood agar plate. Wherever there are colonies, there will be beta hemolysis. On the left side, this is the basic lawn. When you put the sample over the culture plate and you make a lawn of it, and after that, as you will be moving towards the right, you will be seeing that colonies are diluting, that you can see individual colonies whenever you will be streaking more and more organism over the agar plate. It will be diluting. So at the end, you would be seeing individual growth of the organism, so that you can see its colony morphology, and in the end you will be able to pick those colonies for various kind of biochemical tests. This is a typical growth of Staphylococcus epidermidis, that is not a beta hemolytic, and it is not having that golden color of their colonies. They are having whitish colonies. So this is Staphylococcus epidermidis. Staphylococcus aureus is basically notorious for various skin infections and various other infections also. But the Staphylococcus epidermidis is actually notorious for catheter induced infections. It would be causing bacteremia whenever the Staphylococcus epidermidis present over the skin would be introduced into the blood through catheter. It will be causing bacteremia, and at the end that bacteria would be moving to various parts of body to cause systemic infections. So this is Staphylococcus epidermidis. Regarding the epidemiology, the natural reservoirs include humans. The Staphylococcus aureus is colonized basically in the anterior nares, that is the main site of colonization. The Staphylococcus epidermidis is present over the skin, and Staphylococcus saprophyticus, that is one of the staph that is notorious to cause urinary tract infections, that is colonized over the mucosa of the genital tracts. The transmission of various staphylococci can be through hand contact, can be through shedding from the human lesions, and can be from fomites. That can be catheter induced in case of Staphylococcus epidermidis, and various strains of Staphylococcus aureus are causing enteric infections, so it will be passed through fecal-oral route. They may colonize the skin and will be able to cause those catheter induced infections, and they may colonize vagina also, as in case of Staphylococcus saprophyticus. The predisposing factors includes heavily contaminated environment. There can be reduced humoral immunity, that would be the leading cause of infection through staphylococci. There can be low complement levels or low neutrophils. There can be intravenous drug abusers, that will be considered as a predisposing factor, and there can be diseases like diabetes, mellitus, and chronic granulomatous disease. All these conditions are the ones that would be considered as predisposing factors for staphylococcus infections. So the catalase test, the basic test in which you will see the breakdown of hydrogen peroxide. So it will be positive in case of staphylococci and it will be negative in case of streptococci. So staphylococcus, when you will be able to find that this is a catalase positive growth, so it will be considered staphylococcus, and after that you will be doing coagulase test. Only the Staphylococcus aureus is having coagulase enzyme. The other the coagulase negative staph like epidermidis and saprophyticus are coagulase negative. They are not having coagulase enzyme in them and they are not able to form clot. For this coagulase test you will be having plasma, fresh plasma, and you will be putting the growth of staphylococci. If it will be Staphylococcus aureus, it will be forming a clot in that plasma. So the coagulase positive will be Staph aureus, and Coagulase negative will be Staph epidermidis or saprophyticus. That will later be differentiated from each other by putting a diagnostic disc over the sensitivity agar plate, that is novobiocin. And novobiocin, it will be sensitive in case of Staphylococcus epidermidis, and it will be resistant in case of saprophyticus, and that is the way you will be able to differentiate whether it is Staphylococcus epidermidis or Staphylococcus saprophyticus. The Coagulase positive staphylococci, Staphylococcus aureus, that are having various virulence factors. The main components of the cell wall includes the protein A that prevents activation of complement, the teichoic acid that help in the attachment and induce septic shock, and the polysaccharide capsule that is having antiphagocytic activity, and last of all the peptidoglycan layer that is able to induce the septic shock because it is having endotoxin like activities. So these are the cell wall components of Staphylococcus aureus. So regarding the pathogenesis, we are having various virulence factors including exotoxins, leukocidins, and the enzymes. Exotoxins include enterotoxin that will be involved in enteric diseases, the toxic shock syndrome toxin that is involved in causing toxic shock syndrome, especially in the women that are using tampons in case of menses, and that tampons will act as nucleus for the overgrowth of staphylococci that will be colonizing the genital tract, and these staph would be the main source of the toxic shock syndrome. The exfoliatin is the exotoxin that acts as protease that cleaves desmoglein in desmosomes. And the exfoliatin, it will be causing the peeling of skin in the case of scalded skin syndrome. The various leukocidins involve alpha toxin causing marked necrosis of skin and hemolysis by formation of holes in the cell membrane. The PV leukocidins kill cells, especially white blood cells, by damaging their cell membrane. The enzymes in case of staphylococci, especially the Staphylococcus aureus, will be including coagulase that forms clot, the fibrinolysin or the staphylokinase is a fibrinolysin that can lyse the thrombus. So the other enzymes are also involved in the breakdown of intercellular matrix, including hyaluronidase, the protease, nuclease, and the lipase. All these agents will be causing various kind of diseases in case of staphylococcal infections. So the clinical features include the pyogenic diseases and the toxin mediated diseases in case of Staphylococcus aureus. The pyogenic diseases include the skin infections, pneumonia, endocarditis, sepsis, osteomyelitis, and arthritis, post-surgical wound infections, and the metastatic abscesses. The toxin-mediated diseases include the food poisoning, the toxic shock syndrome, and last of all the scalded skin syndrome, in which there is peeling of skin. So these are various pictures produced by Staphylococcus aureus. The Kawasaki syndrome is a disease that is having unknown etiology. It sometimes resembles a toxic shock syndrome caused by Staphylococcus aureus, and it is having various features that are common, including vasculitis, fever, conjunctivitis, strawberry tongue, edema of lips, rash with desquamation on hands and feet, cervical lymphadenopathy, cardiac involvement. All these are features of Kawasaki syndrome. It is actually having just a resemblance with toxic shock syndrome, and nothing directly related to Staphylococcus aureus. Asian children more common in case of the Japan country. No definitive diagnostic test. High dose of immunoglobulin may help in the treatment of disease. So we are having different foods that through which that staph would be transferred to the next person and causing food poisoning. That would be including salads and various bakery products, milk and dairy products, sandwiches, meat and meat products, poultry and egg products. All these would be passed to the human through fecal-oral route. So this is how staph would be causing food poisoning. Thank you.